Okay, welcome back to Mental Toughness Podcast.org, mentaltoughnesspodcast.org. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. We'll send you an email every week dropping the new episode so you don't miss an episode. Okay, so one of the things I've learned from interviewing self-made millionaires and billionaires since 1984. Can you believe that? 1984. Some of you guys are listening, you were alive in 1984. So it was a long time ago, but I wanted to know what they knew. And one of the things that has been a common thread over all these years, this is 38 years into this. I've interviewed about 1,300, I think I'm about 1,326 or 27. These are face-to-face interviews. I didn't do any on the phone. There was no internet, no email. This is all face-to-face. Pretty crazy. But it's been a long time. One of the common threads that I didn't expect to hear from these people over the years, starting in 1984 and to current day, to last week when I interviewed my last self-made millionaire, is the concept of taking 100% responsibility for your results. Results of any kind. Failures, successes, and everything in the middle. Even if there were extenuating circumstances, which there always are, you have to absolutely take 100% responsibility for what you get, the outcome, win, lose, draw, whatever. And a lot of times people would say, and I push back during the interviews, I will tell you, especially in the early days, I said, look, not everything's going to be my fault or your fault. I mean, sometimes you're the victim of circumstance. They say, well, maybe, but you put yourself in that position. You aligned yourself with that business partner. You married that particular person. You befriended this particular individual. So at some level, you're responsible for the outcome, good or bad. And I'll tell you, it took me a while to get my arms around that. But when I started really grasping, it took me a few years to really believe it. Because I thought, well, that's easy for them to say. They're self-made millionaires. I got $10 in the bank, and these guys are running around on, driving Ferraris and living in mansions and, sailing around their yachts and skiing in Aspen and, wintering in Palm Beach and all that other stuff. And that's great for them. But it didn't really make any sense. But when I really started getting my arms around it, I thought, you know what, we really have to do that. Because what it does, of course, if you look at the psychology behind it, and that's what this show is about, is mental toughness and performance psychology. When you look at the psychology behind that belief system, that you have to take 100%, that you are 100% responsible for your outcomes, well, then it's pretty easy to figure out. You're putting yourself in control. You're saying, I'm in control of my life. So if I fail, well, then it's on me. And if I succeed, well, then it's on me. And if I get a result somewhere in between, well, then it's on me. It's always on me. I'm 100% responsible. And then you start thinking, well, I think I'd rather have that belief because it puts me in the driver's seat. It puts me in control. And so I take it. So I embrace it. And I'll tell you when it really made a big difference. We started going into companies, roughly 1997, big sales teams. We started out with Johnson & Johnson, and then we went to all kinds of different companies. You name the company, not all of them, but about half of the Fortune 500, it seems like we went to over the years. And we'd work with regions of these giant companies, try to increase sales and market share and do turnarounds. And we did. And we were very, very successful in the process. And the number one thing that we pushed, and I got this from interviews in the 1980s. That's where I got it from. I'd never heard this before. The number one thing we pushed as the ultimate example of what we labeled in my book, my first book, the 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the World Class, which is what I based all my corporate turnaround work on and all my corporate training on, was the idea that the world class, above any other trait, takes 100% responsibility for their outcomes, good or bad. And I can't tell you how regional vice presidents of and turnaround, specialists in corporate America loved that philosophy because they said, that's the problem with low performing teams. That's why I get hired to come in as a turnaround specialist. And because they don't believe they're getting poor results or mediocre results, they don't believe it's their fault. They think it's the market. They think it's the customer. They think it's the company. They think it's the compensation structure. They think it's their boss. They think it's their manager. Just fill in the blank. It's not them. It's something or someone else. So as a result of that, they feel helpless. And it's what Dr. Martin Seligman, the University of Pennsylvania, called, and he wrote a book about it called Learned Helplessness. Learned helplessness. You learn how to be helpless. Because if I can't control I can't control the weather. You know, if it's pouring outside, we were out in the boat the other day on Lake Lanier, my wife Dawn and I, and it was it was a nice day, and some clouds were coming over the lake, and we were kind of out in the middle there, and we said, God, looks like it's going to rain. It wasn't supposed to rain. I looked at my phone, it's not supposed to rain. Well, the phone's supposed to be right all the time, and usually is. And all of a sudden, it just unloads. I mean, like, I haven't been in that big of a rainstorm, like in the middle of it, like in, 20 years. I mean, it was just crazy. And so we just started racing toward the yacht club where we have our boat parked. And I mean, it took us like 20 minutes to get there. We were absolutely soaked. We looked like drowned rats, And just crazy stuff. Anyway, so the point of it is that when you take 100% responsibility for your results, it changes everything. Because now you're not in control. Like, I couldn't control the weather. I can't control that it's unloading on me, right? That the rain's coming down. I can say, I can really express, again, what Martin Seligman's called, Dr. Martin Seligman calls, learned helplessness. I'm helpless right now. I'll get out of the rain. I can control getting out of the rain. Luckily, I put the boat, put the motor down, put the hammer down, and we got out of there pretty quick. But I can't control the rain, for sure. But these other circumstances, in terms of selling and markets and customers and bosses and all the elements of the equation that go into the equation for success or failure in business, well, you can control a lot of that. You can control the way you respond to it. You can control you can influence the outcomes of these things. And once you start, that's how you do turnarounds. People say, well, how do you come in? We used to get this every day. Well, not every day, but all the time from managers of other companies. They say, how do you go into a company that's doing $500 million in sales a year? They're supposed to be doing 650. And in 12 to 18 months, you get them from doing $500 million in revenue to $650 million or $600 or $700 million, in revenue. How in market share increases? How do you do that? I mean, how are you pulling a rabbit out of a hat? Is what they're effectively saying. And I'll tell you exactly what it is. In general, as a basic guidepost, you got to get them to believe that they're 100% responsible. That's it. That's where it starts. Now, there's a lot of, if it was that easy, anyone would be able to do it. We wouldn't have paid, we got paid tens of millions of dollars to do this over a period of years. And so there's something to it. But the first thing we've got to get them to believe, and you got to get yourself to believe as a performer or as a team, depending on your situation. But if you're an individual listening to this, if you're an athlete or you're an entrepreneur or you're a small business person or you're a doctor, lawyer, professional of some kind, you got to get yourself to believe that you are responsible. You're the one that's responsible. Yes, there are other factors involved, but you are 100% responsible for the result. And once you start with that premise in mind, everything falls under that. And so that's where we started. And you got to get them to believe it. And if it's just you working, then you got to get yourself to believe it. You got to get yourself to believe. You got to stop making excuses. We all do it. I've made them my whole life too. I fall into the same trap like everybody else. But at the same time, this is one of the keys to success. And I want to bring up a book, I think, that expresses this idea better than any book I've ever read. This book changed my life. And I'm not the only one. I'm just one person. This book has changed millions of people's lives. It's sold, I don't know how many millions of copies at this point, but it's a book. They call it the Book of Billionaires, because more billionaires say this is the best book they ever read that changed their life than any other book. That came out by Forbes or Fortune magazine years ago. I forget which magazine it was. They call it the Book of Billionaires, and the book is Atlas Shrugged. As you can see, it is an enormous book. Now, this is a big print one because, actually, it's not. This isn't the big print one. I take it back. This is actually small print. I have a big print one. It's even bigger than this, but I forgot that I have so many copies of this book. This book was just life-changing for me. And it's written by Ayn Rand, a Russian-American, great novelist, but also a brilliant philosopher. This woman was absolutely brilliant. people that follow her philosophy, which is known as objectivism. I won't go into objectivism. We'll do that another time, that whole thing. People either love Ayn Rand or they hate her. She's been gone since she died in 1982. But she was very strong. And again, I won't go into a diatribe about Ayn Rand, but I want to talk more about the book. But this book's 1,200 pages. So I read it the first time I got through it. It took me months to read it. This is 30-something years ago. One of the billionaires I interviewed, who became a billionaire, he was a millionaire at the time, became a billionaire, said, you need to read this book. This will change your life. And I did, and it did change my life. And ever since, I listen to it on audio now about once a year. I haven't listened to it for a couple of years now since COVID. I don't know why, but I just stopped listening to it a couple of years ago, but I got to get back to it. But basically, I won't go into the whole book, but basically, the overall idea with this book, in my opinion, there's so many things in this book. If you are an entrepreneur or a small business professional or a big business professional, you have to read this book. This is mandatory. This is not an option. You absolutely have to read Atlas Shrugged. It is that foundational. Now, you might disagree with objectivism and Ayn Rand's philosophy in the book. It's a novel, but it's so opinionated that, again, some people really go against it and say, well, she was anti-religion, she was anti-construct, she was anti a lot of things. But no, I don't think anyone questions that she was brilliant. She was absolutely a genius. Whether you like her or not, or you like the book, I think you're going to like the book. The entrepreneurs love this book. I mean, it's an entrepreneurial favorite because it puts the individual, it celebrates the individual, the achiever, not the mediocre person or the mediocre performer or the low performer. It celebrates the person pushing for progress and that kind of thing. So entrepreneurs love it, of course, because that's what we do. But I highly recommend this book. And I don't say anything else more about it. I just want you to take my word for it. If you haven't read it, you don't have to read the book. Listen to it on audio. I mean, the damn thing takes you forever to read. It is different. It is a different experience reading it, I will say, because it is worth reading. I mean, it's worth actually reading, not just listening to. I just read it that one time, and I thought, geez, man, I got to get this thing. It'll take me forever. I mean, this thing will stop a truck. It's so heavy. But I've probably got 8, 9 copies, 10 copies in my library, different editions and whatnot. Someone bought this for me years ago for my birthday or something. I'm not sure. But anyway, I've got this is the one I pulled out right away to come to do the show. But read that book. It will change your life. And it really is about responsibility and all those things. And I'll just drop it at that. I'll just let that go. But I just want you to consider that concept. This book is just a perfect example of that. But consider the concept of taking 100% responsibility. And the only pushback you ever get with this, and I push back the same way, is look. If I'm working for a job, or I'm working for a boss I don't like, or I'm in a business I don't like, or I got business partners that are screwing me over, I can't control their behavior. How am I 100% responsible for my results? Well, you have to make the case to yourself that you are, so you put yourself in control by saying, look, you chose the job, you chose the business partner, you married this person, you partnered up with this person over here, you made some choices which led you to this outcome, good or bad. Take responsibility, grow up. That's how the world works. Okay, sorry, it's a rough place. It's your welcome to the rough and tumble of the world, of life. Okay, it's not sunshine and roses all the time. And so you got to take responsibility if you want to win. Now, if you don't want to win, you wouldn't be listening to this show. People don't care about mental toughness that don't want to win. They could care less. They go, why do I care about why do I have to be mentally tough? Why do I care? The only people that care about it, are pushing. They're pushing for progress. And when you're pushing for progress, mental toughness is not only important, it's the most important thing. It's the one thing that gets you to hang in long enough until you get good enough to get what you want. That's really what it is at the end of the day. So read this book. I know you're going to love it. And I'd like to hear about your reaction to it as well. And make sure, again, subscribe to mentaltoughness.podcast.org. .org, Mental Toughness Podcast.org. We'll send you an email every week, let you know when a new episode is dropped, and we can you can dial in, tune into all these different concepts. All this is for free, you guys. This is the new world, right? This is all for free. This is 35 years of doing mental toughness work with the biggest corporations in the world and some of the greatest performers in sports. And I'm giving it to you all for free because that's the way this model operates. And I'm happy to do it because it's benefited me greatly and a lot of other people greatly. And I know it'll benefit you if you take the ideas and work them in your situation and get the success that you're looking for. So with that, I appreciate you listening, watching, and we'll see you next time.